4 easy shred licks that sound advanced. Let's get to it. So this lick utilizes the open strings, and what allows us to do this is the scale we're playing on. So we're playing on the E minor scale. And this scale has all the open strings in it. So we have E, B, G, D, and A as well. Which means that in theory we can play any note that we want inside the scale, and after it an open string, and it will sound good. Okay, so this technique utilizes the open strings to add more notes and to give us sort of a different feeling. So we're gonna split this lick into 2 halves. The first half is gonna be more pull-off and hammer-on oriented, while the second half can be so as well, but I choose to use alternate picking there. So essentially, we're ending every word that we're saying with an open string. In the first half, we're doing this with pull-offs. And in the second half, we can do this with pull-offs as well. Or with alternate picking. And the nice thing about this is that you can take this method and implement it wherever you want. So for example, if we have a melody, simple enough, if we add random open strings to it, we get something pretty cool. The limit here is truly your imagination. This lick 2 is on the E minor scale. And the cool thing about it is that it's mostly made out of arpeggios. Simple 2-string arpeggios to be exact. And if you know these 2-string arpeggios, it's so clear once you play this for the first time. Simple arpeggio lesson right here if you missed that topic. But we're starting off with an E minor arpeggio, with a 7 right here. Then a B minor arpeggio, with a 7 right here. And then we have 2 G major arpeggios. And we end on the low E. So let's understand how we actually play this. LICKS. This lick 2 uses mainly hummers, pull-offs, and legato to achieve this speed. It's very flashy because it has a lot of slides, but these slides actually help us and make this lick easier. The lick starts on the high B, ends on the low E. So start off with a pull-off into a slide. After this slide, we immediately hummer. And then again, we have instantly a hummer and a pull-off. And then a slide again, a hummer and a pull-off. Then another slide into a hummer and a pull-off. And we're ending on a legato sequence, but a fairly easy one. And it's a great way to learn this technique if you haven't already. So the legato sequence is this. So we pick, hammer, and pull off. Then on the D string, we hammer and pull off. Again, the same thing on the A string. And the same thing on the E string. Okay, this lick doesn't have much at all in terms of theory to break down. The main thing to note is that first, it uses the Phrygian scale. And second, we're playing that scale from the bottom up, so from the high strings to the low strings. What's the idea behind playing this lick? Well, we're using so much hummers and pull-offs here, it's insane. Basically, every time we can play a hummer and a pull-off, we do it. So we start this lick off picking the first 3 notes, and then the legato party begins. One thing that can be tricky here is the use of your pinky, because we have a lot of hummers and pull-offs here using the pinky. And the great thing about this is that you can take this idea and put it to use on other scales. So let's take the minor scale for example. We get this. And even without using scales, you can just travel around the neck. So this last one's kinda spicy, and that's because it's a diminished arpeggio. So a full diminished arpeggio from the 5th string to the 1st would be... But on this lick, we're only playing half of the arpeggio, and most of the work is on the left hand again and not on the right hand. The cool thing about diminished arpeggios is that you can take that same shape that you're playing, a step and a half forward or backwards, and it will be a continuation of that same arpeggio that you're playing. And that's what we're doing here. So we have this shape, and we repeat the same thing. We can repeat it as many times as we want. Have no more frets. Okay, so we have a string skip here, but this in no way reflects on this lick's difficulty. And this lick too relies heavily on hummers, pull-offs, and legatos. We start this lick with 2 pull-offs, and then the next note is hummered. We're not picking it, so we get this. Then we have a hummer and a pull-off, and we switch position. So we go a step and a half forward, but we're sticking with the exact same shape that we just played. And we play this. So we start with a pull-off into a hummer, just like we had in our previous shape. And then we hummer, string skip, hummer and pull-off. And that's it, that's our arpeggio and that's our shapes. Take these patterns that we just played, move them a step and a half forward or backwards, and you have yourself the diminished arpeggio that we just played. Tab for these licks and 4 more easy shred licks with a full breakdown video can be found in my Patreon down below. I'm Kamit, thanks for watching.